Hi, I'm Kendra. I just recently finished watching Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 1. I also just got over COVID, so pardon me sounding a little like I've been in the upside down. When I was watching the show, the whole time I was just trying to get views of the house, the Creel House, and this sketch by Nancy's good, but I was kind of looking for the full thing. The Creel House is a pretty huge character in this season, and since it's also a Victorian house, I'm legally required to talk about it. This video will have spoilers for Season 4, Volume 1, as we talk about the type of house, some of the fact and fiction around it, and why I think they chose this house to be this style, just based off cinematic history. If you don't want to learn the history of this house and you just want to see a montage of like what it looks like in real life and what it looks like then, you can go to this time code and you can kind of skip all the like learning parts. Watching Stranger Things this season, I thought, whoa, this is a bit more gruesome than I like, but boy will I keep watching because I just want to see this house more. Also, it's a really good season. I don't like maybe no bones snapping would be okay with me. The home was introduced at episode 3 in the Upside Down, and Vecna's kind of in the roof tower. And the first thing that made me know we were getting a haunted house season was when I saw the roof. It's a Mansard roof with a tower, which you may recognize from The Addams Family, Psycho, Lovecraft Country, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, this Hopper painting. It's used all the time to show kind of a very spooky place, and that really started with Alfred Hitchcock being inspired by that Hopper painting. A Mansard roof is a super vertical roof. It often looks like this. It can like curve or it can go out. It can do all sorts of things, but it's very high pitched. And the benefit of it is it allows to add an extra floor of either living space or storage space in the attic. They were really popular from 1855 to 1885. If a house has a Mansard roof, it is almost certainly a Second Empire house, which is a type of Victorian house. Even though the show is set in Hawkins, Indiana, the Creel House is actually the Claremont house in Rome, Georgia. Sometimes it can be confusing when shows and movies are set back in time to get your bearings as to what's old and what's new to the characters. So when the fictional Creel family lived here, it would have been an old house to them too. So they moved in 1959, and this house was actually built in 1882. So it was already a 75-year-old house. This is a house plan book from 4 years before this house was built. And it outlines the cost of different house styles, including materials and labor. This was a more reasonably sized Second Empire house, and that was said to cost for everything $3,700, which today would be $106,000 in today's money. While this big and elaborate Second Empire here is estimated at $8,000, which would be $231,000 in today's money. The real life Creel House is in visually nice condition, and they definitely had to dirty it up to make it fit for most of the scenes. Before 2019, it was a bed and breakfast for at least 20 years, and you can see a lot of reviews on hotels.com complimenting the food and wishing that there was Wi-Fi on the top floors. If you've ever stayed there, I would love to hear about it in the comments. I'm going to show you some of the interior images that I found online that were originally on a real estate listing when this house was sold in 2019. And then I'll show you shots from the show, or maybe the opposite, I don't know. Here is the exterior from the Upside Down, looking very spooky, very upside down. Here it is in 1959 when the Creel family moved in. This is it when the whole gang goes to look at it in the 80s. And then here we have it in an actual photo from the early 1900s. And then finally, here it is in 2019 when the house was put on the market. I loved when Nancy was drawing out that house based off the sketch from Sadie Sink. I forget the name of her character. I loved when she was sketching that because she did so many architectural details. If you told me to draw a house, I would draw squares, and she's doing like curves to like match the balcony. I don't know why, but it just made me laugh. Now we're going to move our attention to the very cool staircase. Here it is in the upside down. And then here it is from the show when Nancy is in the memory. And here's the staircase in 2019. You can see that they changed the wallpaper and things like that. This is this dark, empty room they just passed by. Here it is in real life. It's actually right next to the dining room. Here's the front door with that rose pattern. The good part is this is not the real front door, considering a brick went through it. I assume they just replaced the door completely. Here is the little girl's bedroom. I'm not sure if this is exactly the same one, but in this you can see the transom above the door, which was used at that time to regulate heat and airflow. Now we're getting into the spooky stuff. This is the dining room. That built-in bar is super detailed, and I have a book with interior details from the same year this house was built, and you can see some similarities. It's nice to see the real estate photo of that because it's so detailed, and you can barely see it when it flashes by in Stranger Things. And this is the view that Nancy would have seen of the gruesome events, because this is the room she walked through. And here is the view from the top of the stairs. It's a really beautiful house, and it's too bad it will only be something disturbing in my mind. I actually usually avoid watching horror movies that are set in old houses because I have a podcast about old houses. I live in an old apartment, and I don't want to be afraid of something that I spend all my time in. And visuals like that mom flying into the air and being killed will stick with me and make me afraid of fancy dining rooms. But on the other hand, because of that shot, you got to see the crone molding. So, you win some, you lose some. Now, I couldn't find any spooky stories about the Claremont house when I was looking through the archives in Georgia papers. What I mostly saw was people doing weddings and celebrations there. So that's a bit different than, what Vecna was celebrating. But I'm also not from the area, so I might not have as much information or archives that other people do. So if anyone knows of any interesting stories about the location, I'd love to hear them. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in Stranger Things next in those 2 final episodes. Now I should probably mention that I do have a podcast. It's called Someone Lived Here. I go to old houses. Sometimes they're spooky. Most of the times they just have really interesting stories of creative people who lived there, like writers and artists and things and people like that. I'm starting to upload them to YouTube, but you can also find them on your podcast app. I also have a video specifically on the Second Empire House and kind of what it means and a little bit more about the pop culture history of it, as well as some of the details about how it's lasted so long. I also have one on witch houses if you like that. Okay. Bye, everyone. I always forget to ask people to subscribe. Please subscribe.